I guess we're online, huh? Yes, we are. Great. So we'll go ahead and everybody, welcome to the Indian Wells Valley Water District Board of Directors Financial Committee meeting. We'll call the meeting to order at, what do we have up there? 2:45, 2:44? All right, gotcha. With that, are there any committee or public comments? I don't see any public out there. Fraud risk discussion?
We have nothing to report.
Always good to hear that. All right. GA imported water costs, discuss imported water costs, potential impact to customers' bills is,
The only thing that's of significant to report at this time is that I believe under WRDA 2024, according to what we see on the internet, the House passed a bill granting the GA $50 million. The Senate passed one that had slightly different language of $5 million. And there's now a process that will go on that will, before the president can sign it, those two things have to read exactly the same. And so there's we'll call it a reconciliation process where they go through. And I think it's safe to presume that when that goes through, there will be a $50 million number attached to it. I think that's a fairly safe bet. However, I would be cautious about, I hear people say that, oh, we're still getting 150 million. I believe only Congress has the authority to authorize funding, and what Congress authorized was $50 million, and additional funding would need a future authorization from Congress. So, I think it's important for us to recognize, the legalities that it, you can still say, if you're the groundwater authority, we're going to get $150 million. And it could very well be that that's probably what's going to happen. But we all need to understand that there is a process to that, and it's out there in the future. So,
for the Capitol Corps representative at the last GA meeting, speaking as if this is, it's just part of the process. We'll go back next year and we'll get another authorization. And
right.
he kind of was not dealing with this as a serious blow. And but my question, I guess, and maybe you can ask during your scheduled GA meetings. I know we're a little bit off topic here. What is can you actually start the project with 50 million? Or do you have to have more in the bank to actually start the project? Because I can't imagine.
So if you actually listen in, I'm going to quote some things that were said in the court hearing on Monday. Mr. Lemieux inferred that they couldn't start the project until the GA came up with their matching $12.5 million to match the $50 million they were authorized. I think that would be really the only realistic restriction to them starting, how far they can get. And, I think they would have to write contracts that were limited to that amount of money. They might have options for other things that if it could be funded in the future. So you could have options on the contract that if more money arrived, I think it could go like that. That's probably, I've seen the court do that before. But, I just want the board to understand that that's kind of where it's at. I have not revised any of my estimates of what the impact are on our customer, because I feel like there's probably a reasonable chance they'll get 150 million. But as we know, even with the 150 million, the bill to our customers is pretty high.
I'm going to go off with what Mel has said too, because Keith and you mentioned they had to have a matching amount before they can get any money. But also, I understood that they have to have all the money in the bank to perform the entire project before this money will be loose. So that's a question I have, because when they were discussing the two different types of grants available, one of them involved the Corps of Engineers doing the project. And I thought they turned that one down, not turned down, but decided not to do it. And yet I'm hearing the Corps of Engineers is going to do this. I'm very confused. When they originally came out, we're looking for money. They said, here's one pot. Here's what one of his, we can get 150 million. One we can get 75 million.
One was faster.
One was faster. One was slower. And one was going to be done by the Corps of Engineers.
I think they were both Corps of Engineers. One just the higher reimbursed or coverage rate, the 100% or whatever.
Right.
Was the Army Corps of Engineers would have to redo all the work that Stetson has already done or Provost and Pritchard had already done. And that's why the process would have taken longer.
Okay, so which one is this? This 50, is this the longer process?
5% shorter.
Oh, the shorter process.
Yeah.
And let me ask the question too. I also understood that they had the show that they had the money to perform the entire project before they get a dime. Can we
That I
find
don't
that
know.
out?
I don't believe I've.
Because
heard that, but
otherwise
I
it-
will find out. I will ask.
Yeah, I mean, we need to
No,
find
I
that
know
out. I'd like to
it's-
know.
I don't
You know,
know
and-
why you'd start a project without full funds.
Exactly.
That
So-
wouldn't
so if
seem
you-
very
Certainly wouldn't do the
prudent.
Northwest Pipeline.
Ask the people who are building that train in the Central Valley.
Yeah, so, so they get their 50 million if they come up with 12.5 million, and yet that's not even nearly enough to complete the pipeline. So I thought that money was going to be held until they show that we have the funds available or access to funds one way or the other to perform the project. So, and so I think there's a lot more hurdles than Capital Corps is saying.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, this is a long-term type thing.
And then, of course, there's also the, what the community is going to have to pony up, which I guess is going to come off the tax rolls, which was I would think another thing that had to be resolved to come up.
Yeah, if you look at,
Community isn't enough to do the job, right?
let's say they go out and they do a Prop 218 on the tax rolls for $12.5 million. Okay, now they still need another $100 million.
Mhm.
So do they look, once they get more money from the feds, do they have to now get matching for that and matching for that? So multiple 218s, multiple tax roll issues. I just don't see how this is all coming together. And George, if you can ever help figure that out, it'd be nice to know. I don't know if we can figure it out,
Yeah,
without some straightforward talks with both Capital Corps and who's ever handling the finances for the GA, which I assume is, who handles their finances?
RSG does.
RSG does?
Yeah.
Carol might have the answers. You could
Yeah,
always
we
talk to
should.
Carol.
my general impression is they intend to proceed with the 50 million and they intend to raise the 12.5 one way or another. Well, I guess we'll know about that because there's going to be some sort of process to get that done. They have to borrow the money. They're going to have to, I know they were concerned that it would be difficult for them to get someone to approve a loan for them, given the way the court hearing went on
Right,
Monday.
yeah.
And so, we'll have to wait and see. I will tell you that, like Capital Corps and we have discussions in our staff meetings and, they're doing what they're doing what
Yeah.
their board is asking them to do and, going after the money, but, it's tight when you have, you gotta get money out of Congress.
Yeah, you're right. So, well, we'll just see. This is, it just seems like it's gonna be a very much of a snail's pace
Mhm.
on anything they do and how it affects our community. We're just gonna know in bits and pieces as it happens is the only thing I can see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, if you set up a Prop 218 for 12.5 million for tax rolls, and let's just say that there are people in the area here who could fight that and get the 10,000 signatures they need, then they're back to square one again. That's why I think that the money isn't available to them so they can prove they have the funds. Because otherwise you get money and you get nothing done, type of thing.
Yeah, the likelihood of repeat 218 approvals after being fooled once.
Yes.
It's going to get lesser and lesser, so it's going to get harder. So
Yeah.
They better be clear with the public, I think, as best they can of what, we're getting 50 now, but we're hoping to maybe we'll get 2 or 3 more increments of 50 in the following 2-3 years. Each will require 218 of matching. You keep coming back to the public every.
They're
year,
gonna say it's enough.
People are finally going to get to a
Yeah.
point where they.
Yeah. It is worth noting that WERD is a 2-year process, so the soonest they can come back for more money is in 2026.
Oh, really?
okay.
So that would be 2026, then 2028,
Oh,
if
boy.
they got 50 million each time.
I have one more question on this. Has there been any comments back or questions about the cost analysis that we had done, that we submitted to them?
From the GA.
Has there been anything from them at all?
There's been criticism of it, and I
Well, yeah.
have repeatedly offered to sit down with them, repeatedly.
Yeah.
And ask them to, sit with us, tell us their concerns.
Because we can adjust that based on what their concerns are if we.
Yeah,
if we
and
get in.
we're more than happy to do that,
Enough.
so like, the thing I try to express to them, it's a complicated cost analysis. It's a large spreadsheet with lots of numbers and lots of assumptions and things that went into that cost estimate.
Yeah.
And my ultimate, derivation of what we thought the cost would be to our customers. We're happy to sit down with them. They have steadfastly not taken us up on that.
Okay.
So on a somewhat related note, they will be giving a presentation at the next GA meeting on the cost of recycled water. And I've asked that if we could see that in advance of their meeting, and I think we're probably going to get it.
Tuesday night.
Tuesday night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
doing our best to try to cooperate with them and say,
No, I
we'd like
appreciate
to have
that,
some.
And we have to.
There was an
Just-
indication in our meeting this morning we had regarding Rademacher It was kind of a sidebar
Mhm.
that, next week's meeting is not gonna happen because they're not gonna have a quorum. So
I heard that too.
that that might be put off another week or two, so.
Which is,
Okay.
hopefully they get us something and we can digest it. You know, I've spent some time looking at their current Title 16 feasibility study costs and the costs that were presented to their board. And, you know, I've gone over that in some detail, but I'd like to see their upcoming presentation on that cost. Because
All right.
and I will say, they're going to push that and say, this is a water district project to do.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
All right. Anything else on
Thank
number
you.
4? Hearing nothing, we're on to the financial statement. Ty?
Okay, starting a clean new fiscal year. Through July, we have revenues of 518,000, which fall below the 153,000 from budget. I wouldn't read too much into this. It's hard to guesstimate between the shifting of the billing.
That hasn't been done yet, the shifting
So,
of,
so I did take the estimated accrual out of that number.
okay, all right.
But to get a year-to-year comparison for July revenues is a little difficult, so.
Mhm.
Expenses to date, 769,000, which is about 780,000 below budget. For a net negative 251, which is actually 627,000 better than budget. Ignore the capital expenditures. I forgot to update that number,
Okay.
but it's not very big. We did just receive the first invoice for the Northwest transmission line, so that'll hit in the August report.
Right.
But other than that, there's very few capital expenditures. Debt service principal, 92,000, and then to date paid to the GSA in cash, 14,493,000.
Wow. Okay. So this is the first month of the fiscal year, and
Yeah.
is everything sort of balanced into it yet, or there's still some things that'll happen?
There's still some other accruals that'll
Okay.
happen over the
All right.
next.
so July was well, I haven't lived here a long time, but it seemed to me that that was a really hot month. I think our water use was fairly high that month as well.
Our water use or consumption was about 90 acre feet higher than last year's July. So we did use more water.
It was,
Um, we won't see that revenue coming in till August timeframe
Right.
right now.
I was
but-
kind of wondering, does that affect our payment to the GA? I assume it was pretty big.
Yeah, our payment, which we haven't made, so our payment this month for last month's usage or pumping will be about $500,000.
okay.
That's factoring in, taking out our credit
So
already.
Right.
these are the impacts of the new procedure we're using. So as we come to a new fiscal year, it's going to be in the middle of summer, and then in the
Yeah.
winter months, we'll have almost like sort of our credit or won't be paying anything.
We'll be paying less. We modeled it after tier 2 usage.
Right.
So,
That's when we collect the money. That's when we're gonna pay the money though. Yeah.
and so ultimately, does that have an impact on the budget and where we stand as far as the balance early in the year?
No, not yet.
Oh, yeah.
It's sort of money in, money out, isn't it?
It is.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, you see, well, 131,000 in GSA fees for July, but that's because of the accrual we had to take out.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
To the previous year, but
And
looking, I think when I was estimating, July's GA fee revenue, we were about 25,000 less than what we're paying to the GA. So we're not quite, but there is that time differential. So
when will we recoup all our credits? The end of the year, next year?
end of next year.
End of next
calendar
year? The calendar year 25, right? Okay. Gotcha.
Part of this is my fault. I filled my pool in July and not June.
Ah, that was you? Okay. Yeah. Well, just bill him extra. Yeah. Okay. Any comments or questions about the expenses and
Not really.
budget?
It's a little early to
Yeah.
do
so.
anything anyway, right?
All right. With that, we'll move on to accounts payable disbursements. Let's take a quick look at this.
The big one on page 2 is that 531,000 to Special District Risk Management Authority. That's our property and liability insurance. It's gone up quite a bit over the last couple of years.
Which one is that, Ty?
Should be the second page of that
Bottom of this.
accounts payable.
Yeah, that is a big chunk. So that's just a one-time.
Oh, yeah, I see it, yeah.
That's once a year.
That's
one-time
once a
good
year.
deal.
It
Yeah.
covers all the insurances and, okay.
Just like JPIA and,
Yeah, it's like that, yeah.
okay.
But it's gone up probably in the last 4 years from 350,000, 300,000, 350 up to it's 530 now.
Just in
In a couple years
in a couple of
time.
years, it's gone.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Part of it's been, as we found out at the Aqua conference, I didn't get there early enough this year to see the JPIA discussion, but last year we did get there the day, they do it on the very first day of Aqua.
Right.
And one of the big factors that they're dealing with is, just general liabilities across the state, but the other one was the cyber liability. And
Oh.
it's been going up very steeply.
Yeah.
And because there's been quite a few claims and there's, so they're encouraging, matter of fact, they've got deals out there that if you increase your cyber profile.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure exactly how you do that, but there are ways that you can qualify for lower rates if you can show that you're more resilient to cyber attack versus other agencies.
And I assume that if you have some kind of a program that shows how well you're protecting your system,
Right.
that probably goes towards a credit as well. All right. I'm sure we'll take advantage of all that.
No, and I think at some point, if you guys want a sort of a briefing on a more detailed briefing on our cyber posture and what we do, we can get Chris and.
Then you won't hear anything because we don't want the hackers to know what we did.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, so,
You have to talk to us quietly.
okay. So,
Or,
think we have a great
or
team
the
that's gonna
directors
get
can have, talk with Chris, go see him one day and get a little, have him fill you in.
Chris will tell you nothing as well.
Yeah, I can't tell you anything unless never mind.
I'm confident, based on what casual discussions I've had on this topic over the past couple of years, but the thing that I did notice, like I say, at the Aqua conference last year, they were saying that, there are ways that we can reduce our insurance premium if
Hmm.
we have demonstrated a certain level of cyber competence.
I'll look into that.
Look into it.
Yeah, I'll look into that.
But I didn't realize how much it had been growing either. At the time, it wasn't that big a deal, but this is quite a bit of growth in 2 years.
Yeah, it's a lot. But yeah, on the cyber side, we have put a lot of work into it in the last few years. It's-
Might be, there may be a boon to that on our behalf.
Yeah.
and I think we're all aware that California is sort of in the midst of what we'll call an insurance crisis, whether it be automobile or homeowner or whatever. I mean, their insurance companies are fleeing the state like crazy and rates are going through the roof and it's.
And we
it's
have
not
added
good.
some infrastructure, like the tanks and the new booster station have been added
Right.
on this. So that does impact it a little
Yeah,
bit.
okay,
Yeah.
sure.
What was the Nobel Systems Incorporated of,
That's our new GIS system,
okay,
which we'll be demonstrating at one of the board meetings upcoming.
great. And I also see the Little Lake Ranch, this option, that's the first option, the $20,000.
That would actually be the last quarterly option at this point in time.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I have my fingers crossed it's the last one.
I think, yeah, we'll know soon. I have a feeling it is. All right. Okay, let's see the next page here. There's always Aqua. I don't see anything out of the ordinary. Have any questions, Mel?
No.
All right. If we have none, then I'm going to go ask if we want to approve payments of the disbursements. Yes?
I'll make that motion.
No, yeah, well, I agree too then. Let's move on with it. And we'll
Good job, guys.
submit to the board for approval, right? Okay. Any future agenda items?
Can't think of any.
Nothing? All right. With that, I will adjourn the meeting at 3:04. Adjourned. Thank-
Awesome.
Woo-hoo.